Hello. This is unusually extremely rainy in Japan in the middle of August. I'm sitting on the piers of Osaka port, and here is a very heavy rain, and many water plants are washed out here. So you can look on them and see they're actually not algae, because this is kind of half fresh water around, and many flowering plants are growing here. Actually, flowering plants of all sorts. Flowering plants which are growing in salty water also present, and this is most interesting. So you understand that algae are not plants. They are not even multi-tissued organisms. Algae do not form normal organs and normal tissues. And it is very easy to distinguish algae from plants in the water, because most of flowering plants which grow in the water grow in the fresh water, whereas complicated algae grow in the seas. So if you see anything complicated, flowering plant if it grows in the fresh water, or alga if it grows in the sea. Seagrasses, this is a seagrass, are kind of exception. There are flowering plants which, however, inhabit the salty water, kind of exception among all flowering plants. So you can see among like typical freshwater kabomba, typical freshwater eladia, you can see some real seagrasses washed out on the shore. So how distinguish them from algae? Well, in salty water, I told you the rule. If you see something complicated, this is typically alga. But exception is exception. If you see something complicated and developing very naturally stems and leaves. So all typical organs of flowering plants, stems, leaves, and even roots. So if you see all of that, you can be sure you deal with a seagrass. Seagrasses are a very interesting and unusual group of monocots. Like insects, flowering plants do not typically go to the sea, but one group of monocots adapted themselves to grow in the sea and compete with algae. So they develop nice crawling rhizomes with roots, and sometimes they also flowering underwater. Very interesting flowering and very interesting pollination. So this is a seagrass on a very rainy day on Osaka port. Seagrass was kind of exception from the general rule, which says if you see something complicated in the salty water, this is most likely alga. Well, if you see something complicated in the fresh water, there's also exception. There are crazy algae which are very similar to plants, but this is a different story. Again, seagrasses together with like a normal freshwater plants on a Osaka port on August 17th. Thank you very much.